Good morning. It's Thursday morning, and that means the book of Proverbs as we draw some wisdom from Solomon. And this morning I want to share with you a proverb that may forever change the way you think about your life and living it. Now, for most of us Christians, we kind of divide our lives into two parts. There is the Christian part, where we try to please God, we try to grow in our faith, we do things like we're doing this morning and looking into the scripture, and we try to become like Jesus. And all of that is good and proper. And then there's the other part of our life. That is the part that opposes God. Our enemies, the ones who stand in the way, who mock and scorn and don't understand and irritate us, and we treat them as obstacles. They get in the way of where we're going or where we want to go. Now, Jesus has already, on Tuesdays, we look into the Sermon on the Mount, or we have been. And remember, Jesus has already taught us differently about our enemies. He said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So already we've learned that we should think differently about our enemies. Now, this proverb takes it to another whole level, because in an amazing way, it brings together those two parts of our lives: the life where we're focused on pleasing God, and our enemies who oppose us, who get in the way. So Solomon has a secret for us, and here it is. Chapter 6 and verse 11 of the book of Proverbs. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Wow. Now that's a different take on our enemies. We know we're supposed to love them and pray for them, but really? Can they become frenemies? Enemies who are friends? That's apparently what Solomon's saying. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Now, I have proof that this is true. And the proof is the story of Jacob and Esau. Now, it's a long story, and I won't go into it in any depth this morning. But remember, the story of Jacob and Esau is that from the womb, from the very beginning, when they were inside their mom's womb, they were enemies. Isaac and Rebekah had these two. They were twins. And Esau, they were born when they were born. Esau was the first one out. They were struggling in the womb. They were already enemies in the womb. And then Esau came out first, and Jacob came out second. And we read in the description of these newborn twins that they were totally different. Esau was red, and he was rough, and when he grew up, he loved the field, he loved to hunt. He was his father's son. And Jacob was a mama's boy. He loved the home, and he loved to cook. And so they were very, very different men. And from the very beginning, they were enemies, and they grew up to be enemies, mainly because when it came to the birthright, which belonged, according to Jewish tradition and law, belonged to the firstborn son, that would have been Esau. Well, you remember the story perhaps that Rebekah conspired with her favorite son, Jacob, to steal the birthright. And Jacob impersonated Esau and sat on his father's lap, and his father, who couldn't barely see at the time and was older, gave the birthright to Jacob. So it's just one big conspiracy, and it sealed forever this relationship they had as enemies. So after that point, Jacob works 14 years at his uncle Laban's place, his farm. He works because he fell in love with Laban's daughter, Rachel. And so Laban deceives him. Deceit ran in this family. Laban deceived him, and so he worked 7 years, and ended up with Leah, not the one he fell in love with. And then he worked another 7 years to finally get the woman that he loved, and that was Rachel. And then he worked another 6 years for the cattle. So anyway, 20 years passed, and finally Esau, with his new wife, Rachel, and a lot of wealth and a lot of cattle, God blessed him, he finally makes contact with his brother Esau. You know how harrowing that can be when you have an enemy in your life and a long time goes by and silence deepens the relationship and hardens the relationship. To make contact again is hard. Maybe some of you have faced that. Well, Jacob sends word to Esau that he's going to come. He's got a lot of cattle and everything, and he wants to meet him. And he learns from his messengers that Esau is racing to meet him. And so Jacob thought the worst. Jacob thought that Esau was coming to destroy him, and that to pick up this old warfare between them. And so when Esau comes, Jacob prepares for the worst. He prepares for battle, and Esau races and runs and embraces his brother Jacob and kisses him on the neck. It's just such a precious and amazing and surprising outcome to that relationship. Why? Because Jacob's ways had pleased the Lord, and God had made peace between him and his brother. Now, I don't think you can use this scripture to suggest that every enemy in your life is going to be at peace with you if you seek to please the Lord, but it is what the Lord wants us to do. And he can dramatically change your relationships in the way you think about the enemies in your life by focusing on pleasing the Lord, and let God work in those difficult relationships. So there's a thought for Thursday. Have a blessed one.